The galaxy had known peace for hundreds of years, or at least that was what the Galactic Empire wanted everyone to believe. In truth, it was not peace born from harmony, but silence born from fear. Every planet, every moon, every living race in the galaxy had bent under the Empire's rule. Their fleets filled the skies, their banners hung above cities, and their leaders demanded loyalty or destruction. No one dared to fight back. No one even imagined that the Empire could ever be challenged. The Imperial Palace floated above the planet of Vorthan Prime, the heart of the Empire. It was a massive structure of glass and steel, reflecting the cold light of two suns. From its highest tower, the Emperor's Council watched over the stars like distant gods, believing nothing existed beyond their reach. But even gods can be surprised. It started quietly, as most great events do. In a forgotten sector on the edge of the galaxy, long abandoned and marked uninhabitable centuries ago, something stirred. Small flashes of light were seen by a lone mining ship drifting near the sector's border. The captain thought it was just a malfunction in his sensors, until the flashes grew stronger, forming a strange pattern. The readings were like nothing he'd ever seen. Before he could send a full report, his transmission ended mid-sentence. The mining ship vanished, leaving only static on the communication channel. The Empire dismissed it at first. One missing ship meant nothing to them. Space was dangerous. Accidents happened. But a week later, another ship disappeared in the same area. Then another. Then a fourth. By the fifth disappearance, even the Empire began to worry. An emergency meeting was called at Fleet Command. The room was filled with admirals, scientists, and intelligence officers. On the screen in front of them, a technician replayed the final seconds from one of the lost ships. It was just static at first, then a brief flicker of light, something massive, something metallic, before the feed cut off completely. The admirals argued for hours. Some claimed it was a new pirate group, others blamed an alien rebellion. The scientists, however, looked uneasy. They had analyzed the strange energy readings from the area and found something terrifying. The energy density was off the charts, thousands of times higher than what any known technology could generate. And yet it was stable, controlled, almost deliberate. "That's impossible," one of the scientists whispered. "Nothing can maintain that kind of power without destabilizing." But the data didn't lie. To calm the rising panic, the Empire sent a small patrol of scout ships to investigate. The mission was simple: scan the region, report back, and return immediately. The scouts entered the silent sector. Hours passed, then days, no response. Their signals vanished one after another. When the fifth day ended with no word, Fleet Command went into full lockdown. The Empire had enemies, but none capable of doing this. No traces of debris, no explosions, no wreckage. It was as if the ships had been erased from existence. Then came the first real sign. An observation outpost on the edge of Imperial space picked up something enormous. It wasn't moving, but it wasn't drifting either. It was there, hanging in the dark, massive enough to block starlight. The outpost's crew zoomed in, expecting to find an asteroid or abandoned station. Instead, their screens filled with the image of a huge vessel, sleek, dark, and alien in design. No known Empire ship looked like it. The surface of the vessel shimmered faintly, as if wrapped in some invisible energy. Strange markings were etched across its hull, written in a language no one recognized. The crew immediately sent a report to command. But before the transmission could finish, the entire outpost went dark. That was the moment the Empire realized something beyond their understanding had entered their space. Within hours, panic rippled through the ranks. The Emperor's voice boomed across the command halls, ordering the deployment of heavy battlecruisers. The Empire's might had crushed countless civilizations before. They believed it could handle one mysterious ship. The fleet gathered near the sector border, 3 massive battlecruisers and 12 escort ships, armed with the most powerful weapons known to the galaxy. Their mission was to make contact, and if necessary, eliminate the intruder. But what they encountered that day was unlike anything they had ever faced. Without warning, the unidentified ship appeared right in front of them. No hyperspace trail, no warp signature, nothing. One moment the space was empty, then suddenly it wasn't. It had simply appeared. The Imperial sensors went wild, unable to track how it had entered. The vessel dwarfed even their largest cruisers. It was not smooth like Imperial ships. It looked older, more deliberate, its design sharp yet elegant. Its presence alone radiated power. The commander of the Imperial fleet ordered communications to be opened. "This is Imperial Fleet Command," the officer announced proudly. "You are entering restricted territory of the Galactic Empire. Identify yourself immediately." No answer. He tried again, louder, angrier. Still silence. The strange ship just floated there, its surface glimmering faintly under the stars. It didn't move. It didn't arm its weapons. It simply watched. Then a pulsive sound broke through the static. 5 words appeared on every Imperial screen, translated automatically into the Empire's language. The words were simple, but they froze everyone who saw them. "This is Earth's Defense Command." The control room fell silent. The officers looked at each other, confused. Earth? None of them had ever heard that name before. The Empire's archives contained records of thousands of worlds, but not this one. Some older scientists at the command center whispered to each other, recalling faint mentions of an ancient species from pre-Imperial times, a species that vanished long before the Empire was born. But surely that was just legend. Humanity was a myth, and wasn't it? The Imperial commander didn't care for legends. He saw only a threat. "If they will not respond properly," he barked, "then they will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." He gave the order to fire. Dozens of plasma cannons lit up the darkness, followed by missiles streaking across space. The blasts roared toward the human ship, only to disappear. Every shot, every explosion, dissolved before reaching the target. The human vessel was untouched, surrounded by a glowing field that absorbed everything thrown at it. Not even a spark reached its hull. The commander stared in disbelief. His sensors showed something impossible. Every weapon's energy had been neutralized at the atomic level. The Empire had never seen such technology before. Then, without warning, the mysterious ship sent out a soft wave of light. It wasn't an attack. It was data. The wave passed through every Imperial ship in the fleet. Screens flickered, systems rebooted, engines died. Communication links snapped. One by one, the ships went silent, their crews staring at dead consoles. The only thing still active was the central screen on the command deck. A human voice came through. Calm, emotionless, but firm. "You have entered restricted space. Leave immediately, or be removed." No threats, no shouting. Just certainty. The kind of certainty that comes from complete power. The commander felt a chill crawl up his spine. He wanted to respond, to fight back, but his ship no longer obeyed him. The engines wouldn't start. Weapons were offline. Even the escape pods were locked. The entire fleet was helpless, floating like toys before a god. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The lights came back on, the systems rebooted, and the human ship turned slowly. It began to move away, vanishing as quietly as it had appeared. The fleet limped home in silence. When the Imperial ships returned, they were met with disbelief and fear. The Admiralty tried to cover it up, claiming it was a sensor malfunction or a drill gone wrong. But the crews knew what they had seen. They had witnessed something beyond the Empire's control, beyond their understanding. Rumors spread through the ranks like wildfire. Some said the humans were ancient protectors, awakened after thousands of years. Others believed they had been hiding in secret, watching the galaxy grow corrupt and cruel, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. The Empire had just seen the limits of its own power. For the first time in centuries, it had been forced to face something greater than itself. Far from Vorthan Prime, in the dark silence of space, the human warship continued its quiet journey. Its hull glowed softly under distant starlight, its engines whispering through the void. Inside, no celebration took place, no laughter, no pride. Humanity had not come to conquer. They had come to protect something. Something that the Empire, in its arrogance, had forgotten existed. And as the ship disappeared once more into the endless black, a quiet thought echoed through the galaxy. If humanity had returned, what else was waiting out there? The Empire was restless. What had happened near the border was supposed to be impossible. The great Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for hundreds of years. Their fleets had destroyed entire civilizations that stood against them. No power had ever matched them in technology, discipline, or strength. Yet one silent ship, just one, had made their entire fleet helpless. The incident was never reported to the public. The Empire couldn't afford panic. But rumors spread anyway. Soldiers whispered about a ghost ship that could appear out of nowhere. Some said it wasn't a ship at all, but a weapon from another dimension. Others believed it was the spirit of an ancient race, punishing the Empire for its cruelty. The Admiralty denied everything, but even high-ranking officers began to question what they had seen. Scientists were ordered to study the strange readings that came from the human vessel, yet none of them could make sense of it. The energy signatures didn't match any known propulsion system. There were no traces of hyperspace entry, no gravitational disturbance, no radiation trail. It was as if the ship had simply decided to exist and then did. One scientist dared to say what everyone feared. "Whatever it is," he said quietly during a meeting, "it's beyond us. Whoever built that ship is far ahead of anything we can imagine." The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit it, but they all felt the same chill in their bones. Days passed, then weeks. The mysterious warship hadn't been seen again. The Empire's border patrols returned to routine, though none of the officers felt truly at ease. Every time their scanners picked up an unknown signal, they froze for a second, expecting to see that dark, massive shape appear before them again. At the same time, deep inside the Imperial capital, secret meetings continued. The Emperor's council gathered behind closed doors. The head of fleet intelligence presented new findings. "We've checked every record," he said. "There's no mention of any human colonies, no sign of any human civilization anywhere in known space. It's as if they never existed." Another council member replied sharply. "Then who sent that transmission? Who are these humans claiming to be from Earth's Defense Command?" No one had an answer. After several long moments, an old historian spoke up. His voice trembled slightly as he pulled up a set of ancient records, files so old they were nearly forgotten. The holographic screen filled with faded images and broken text. "There is one mention," he said carefully. "Thousands of years ago, before the Empire united the galaxy, a small planet named Earth was recorded in the archives. It was said to be the home of a species that called themselves humans." The others leaned in, curious but skeptical. "And what happened to them?" someone asked. "No one knows," the historian replied. "The records say they reached the stars early, very early. Then they vanished. No trace, no colonies. It was as if they disappeared overnight." A low murmur spread across the room. The Emperor's voice cut through the noise. "Vanished species don't build warships that disable fleets," he said coldly. "If they survived, we must know where they've been all this time." An order was given. The Empire launched an investigation spanning dozens of star systems. Drones were sent to search for human settlements, communication beacons, or any trace of technology similar to the mysterious warship. Weeks of searching revealed nothing. Every lead went cold, but then something unexpected happened. One small research outpost on the edge of the Orion Nebula detected a faint signal. It was weak, buried under layers of radiation, but it was definitely artificial. The frequency didn't match any known beacon. It was old, ancient even. The scientists worked day and night to decode it. Finally, the signal cleared. It was a message. The voice that came through was calm and human. The words were clear. "Do not enter restricted space. This region is under Earth's protection." The room went silent. The scientists stared at the transmission, hardly breathing. The coordinates embedded in the message pointed directly to a system marked on Imperial maps as uninhabited. When the report reached the Emperor, he ordered a fleet to investigate immediately. "If they claim territory within our borders," he said, "we will see who truly owns it." A grand fleet was assembled. 10 warships, 2 dreadnoughts, and hundreds of smaller vessels. Their commander was known for his ruthless efficiency. He was confident this mission would restore the Empire's image. If it's a human fleet, he told his officers, we'll make an example of them. The ships entered hyperspace and arrived near the designated system. Everything was quiet at first. No resistance, no signals, just empty stars and a few broken moons orbiting a dying sun. The fleet began scanning the region, and for a while it seemed like the humans were gone. Then one of the scout ships reported strange readings near the third planet. The commander ordered them to investigate. The scout ship approached slowly, sensors sweeping across the barren surface. Suddenly, all readings spiked at once. A vast energy field covered the planet like an invisible shell. Before the crew could react, the image on their screens shifted, and there it was again, the human warship. It stood in low orbit, silent and still, as if waiting for them. The Imperial commander clenched his fists. "Open a channel," he ordered. "This is Imperial Command," he declared once the transmission opened. "You are trespassing in our domain. Identify your purpose or face immediate action." There was no reply, just the faint hum of static. The commander repeated his demand. Still nothing. His patience snapped. "Very well," he said coldly. "Prepare the main cannons." The fleet powered up their weapons, targeting the human ship. Energy readings climbed rapidly. Then, just as they were about to fire, the mysterious vessel moved. Slowly, gracefully, it turned to face them. Its hull glowed with soft white lines, like veins of light running across its surface. No weapons were visible, but every sensor screamed that the power levels were beyond anything measurable. A new signal came through. This time the voice was firm and calm, human again. "Do not proceed further. This is your only warning." The commander laughed under his breath. "Fire." The entire fleet unleashed their weapons, beams, missiles, plasma bursts. The stars lit up with color and noise. When the smoke cleared, the human ship remained untouched. Every shot had been absorbed or redirected harmlessly into space. Then the human vessel responded. A single pulse of light rippled from it, soft, almost beautiful. But within seconds, every Imperial system shut down. Engines died. Weapons went offline. Communications froze. The fleet hung motionless, powerless, drifting in silence. The commander stared at his darkened console, unable to believe what he was seeing. What did they do to us?" The voice returned, calm as ever. "You were warned. Leave this system and never return." The lights flickered back on. Power was restored, but navigation systems had been erased. The coordinates were gone. The fleet could no longer find its way back to the same location. It was as if the system had been removed from existence itself. They returned home in silence once again. This time the Emperor did not shout or issue threats. He sat in silence as the report played before him, the voice of the human commander repeating the same warning. When it ended, the room stayed still for several long seconds. Finally, the Emperor spoke softly. "They could have destroyed us, but they didn't." His advisors waited for orders, but none came. The Emperor simply looked at the holographic projection of the human ship, replaying the moment it appeared out of nowhere. "What are they protecting?" he murmured. "And from whom?" No one answered. In the weeks that followed, the Empire quietly restricted all travel near that region. They told the public it was because of unstable radiation, but the soldiers who had seen the human ship knew the truth. Something powerful was out there, something watching, waiting. Some officers began to wonder if humanity had ever truly disappeared. Maybe they had gone far beyond the reach of the Empire, building, learning, preparing. Maybe they had seen the rise of the Empire and decided to stay silent until the galaxy forgot them. And now, perhaps, they were returning. Across the stars, the legend of the human warship spread quietly. Merchants whispered about it in trade ports. Captains told stories in secret. "It appears without warning," they said, "and disappears before you can blink. It doesn't attack unless provoked. But when it does, no one survives." The Empire tried to control the rumors, but it was too late. Fear had already taken root. For the first time in generations, the galaxy began to doubt the Empire's strength. And somewhere beyond their reach, in the darkness between stars, the humans watched silently, guarding something ancient and precious, something the Empire would never understand. The galaxy was no longer quiet. The mysterious appearance of the human warship had changed everything. Across the vast network of star systems, people whispered in fear and curiosity. No one had ever seen such power before. A single ship had humiliated the mighty Galactic Empire twice, and no one could explain how. The Empire tried to keep the truth buried. They destroyed every report, silenced every officer who spoke too much, and declared the border region off limits due to cosmic instability. But the truth had already escaped. Soldiers talked when they drank. Pilots told stories they swore were just rumors. Miners and traders, who passed near the restricted zone, claimed they saw strange flashes of light, patterns that looked like a ship phasing in and out of existence. The Emperor was furious but also afraid. He didn't show it, but those close to him could see the worry in his eyes. The Empire had ruled by fear for centuries. They crushed rebellions before they started, and their technology was unmatched. But now the Empire itself was afraid of something it couldn't understand, something it couldn't control. In the Imperial Research Division, scientists worked day and night, analyzing the data from the encounters. They studied the ship's energy readings, its speed, and the strange way it appeared without any hyperspace trail. Every equation led to the same answer: impossible. The human ship operated on technology that broke every known law of physics. No hyperspace engines, no warp drives, no energy decay. It just appeared as if teleporting across space. One scientist, tired and pale from lack of sleep, whispered during a meeting, "This is not new technology. It's something ancient. They've mastered something we can't even imagine." The others looked at him but said nothing. Everyone was thinking the same thing. They were facing a civilization far beyond their own. Meanwhile, the human ship had not been seen again for weeks. Some believed it had left the galaxy entirely. Others thought it was hiding, watching silently from the shadows. But in truth, the ship was still there, quiet, patient, and always aware of the Empire's movements. Inside that massive vessel, the humans were not celebrating their victories. They weren't interested in war. They had watched the Empire's expansion for a long time. They had seen countless worlds fall under its rule. Now the Empire's greed had reached a forbidden region, one the humans had sworn to protect. The commander of the human vessel stood before a large screen showing the galaxy's map. Red lines marked Imperial borders. Blue lights marked human observation posts hidden across distant systems. The commander's voice was calm but heavy with thought. "They're testing us," he said. "They still don't understand what they've seen." An officer replied softly, "If they attack again, do we respond?" The commander took a long pause. "Only if they cross the boundary again. We are not conquerors, we defend. That is our purpose." Far away in the Imperial capital, the council met once again. The Emperor sat in silence as his advisors argued. Some demanded revenge. "We cannot let them humiliate us," one shouted. "If we do nothing, the entire galaxy will see us as weak." Others urged caution. "If they can disable a fleet with one pulse," another argued. "What would happen if we send an army? We might not survive another encounter." The room filled with voices, but the Emperor raised his hand and everyone fell silent. "We will not act blindly," he said slowly. "But we will find out who they are, where they come from, and what they want." The Empire began a secret mission. Dozens of stealth probes were sent into the restricted zone. Each one was cloaked, invisible to normal sensors. Their mission was simple: observe, collect data, and return. For days, there was no sign of trouble. The probes transmitted images of empty space, asteroids, and silent planets. Then, one by one, the signals began to vanish. No explosion, no interference, just silence. One last probe remained. It sent back a single final image before its signal cut off completely. The photo showed something breathtaking: a massive human space station hidden behind the light of a dying star. It was enormous, large enough to house millions. The structure seemed alive, its surface moving slowly like the ripples of an ocean. Lights glowed softly along its curves, forming patterns that looked almost like constellations. When the Emperor saw the image, he stood up slowly. "So, they're not hiding," he said. "They're watching." The discovery changed everything. The Empire realized that the single warship they had encountered might not be alone. If humans had built something of that scale, there could be more. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Fear turned into quiet panic. For the first time in generations, the Empire was uncertain of its future. A week later, something unexpected happened. An unmarked cargo vessel appeared at the edge of Imperial space. Its signal was faint and encrypted in an unknown code. The Imperial Navy intercepted it immediately, surrounding it with battle cruisers. But when they scanned it, they found no weapons, no soldiers, only one small beacon sitting at the center of the ship. The beacon activated on its own, projecting a message into the command bridge. A human figure appeared as a hologram. The figure's face was calm, expression unreadable. Its voice was clear and steady. "Empire of Orthan," it said. "We do not wish for conflict. You are approaching protected worlds that must not be disturbed. Leave this region and there will be peace. Cross the boundary again and your fleets will vanish as if they never existed. This is your final warning." Then the beacon shut off. The cargo vessel disintegrated into light, leaving no trace behind. The Imperial officers stood frozen. No one moved, no one spoke. They immediately sent the recording to the capital. The Emperor watched it in silence. His advisors waited for orders, but his face revealed nothing. He was no longer angry, he was curious. "Protected worlds," he repeated softly. What could they be protecting? The question spread through the Empire like wildfire. Every scientist, historian, and explorer tried to solve the mystery. Some thought the humans were guarding a superweapon. Others believed it was a hidden colony, maybe the last remnant of their species. But deep in the restricted region, far beyond where any Imperial scanner could reach, the truth rested quietly on a small blue planet, a world that looked ordinary from afar. Its surface was covered with forests, oceans, and mountains. But beneath its surface lay something ancient, something that pulsed faintly with light. It was not a weapon or a city, it was a vault. Inside it slept the last fragments of humanity's past, memories and knowledge that could reshape the galaxy itself. The humans had not vanished. They had evolved. They had left the galaxy centuries ago, venturing into the dark beyond known space. What the Empire was seeing now was only a small part of their presence, a guardian fleet assigned to watch over what remained. As the days passed, strange changes began to occur near the border worlds. Imperial ships started reporting odd anomalies, brief distortions, unexplained disappearances, and voices echoing through communication channels. Some officers swore they heard whispers when they entered certain coordinates. Others said they saw flashes of light shaped like human figures standing among the stars. Fear began to spread quietly among the fleet. The humans had not attacked again, but their presence could be felt everywhere. It was like the galaxy itself had started to breathe differently, more aware, more alive. The Empire doubled its patrols, but deep down, everyone knew the truth. They were being watched, and for the first time in its long history, the Empire had to admit that it was not the center of the universe. Far away, the human commander looked at the reports flowing across the screen. "They're beginning to understand," the officer beside him said. "Not yet," the commander replied. "But soon they will. We've protected these worlds for too long to let them fall again." The ship moved silently through the stars, disappearing into the darkness once more. No engine sound, no light, just silence. In that silence lay the weight of history, of choices made long ago, and of a truth the Empire was not ready to face. And somewhere in the Emperor's palace, a quiet realization was beginning to take shape. A thought that kept him awake at night. If one human warship could make the Empire tremble, what would happen if the rest of humanity returned? The Empire was no longer the same. Ever since the human warship had appeared, things had started to crumble from within. Officers who once spoke with pride now whispered in fear. The confidence that once filled the Imperial fleets had turned into quiet uncertainty. The Emperor's grand palace, once buzzing with energy and control, now felt heavier, colder. He often stood by the giant observation window, looking out into the stars, thinking about the strange message that had haunted his mind since the day he first heard it. "Leave this region, and there will be peace. Cross the boundary again, and your fleets will vanish as if they never existed." Those words repeated in his mind every night like a curse. He was not a man easily frightened. He had ruled for decades and destroyed countless enemies, but this enemy was different. It didn't boast, didn't threaten, didn't even show anger. It simply warned, calmly, firmly, as if it knew exactly how powerful it was. Still, pride was a dangerous thing. The Emperor couldn't accept the idea that someone out there was stronger than him. So he called another meeting of his council, the room filled with admirals, scientists, and strategists. Some faces looked confident, others fearful, but everyone knew the Emperor was looking for answers. One of the younger admirals stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he began carefully, Our fleets have avoided the restricted region as ordered, but the people are starting to ask questions. They want to know who these humans are. They want to know if the Empire is losing control. The Emperor's gaze turned sharp. The Empire does not lose control, he said quietly. We simply choose when to act. The Admiral nodded quickly, lowering his head. Another officer spoke up. We have been studying the recordings from the last encounter. The energy shield around the human ship. It defies our understanding. It bends every known law of physics. If we could learn how it works, if we could replicate it, our power would double overnight. The Emperor turned to the scientists seated at the far end of the table. Can it be done? One of them hesitated before answering. Not with what we currently know, Your Majesty. But if we could capture a human ship, even a small one, we might learn from its technology. The Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly. Capture one, he repeated. Without provoking war? The scientist bowed his head. We can attempt to create a decoy signal, something that might draw one of their smaller ships to investigate. The Emperor thought for a long moment, then nodded. Do it. But make sure they don't realize it's a trap. And so the plan began. In the cold silence of space near the edge of the restricted region, a small Imperial station was set up. It transmitted a series of coded distress signals designed to look like an old human beacon, something that might catch the attention of the mysterious watchers. The crew waited in silence, eyes fixed on their scanners. Hours passed. Then days. Nothing. Some began to think the plan had failed. But on the fourth day, the alarm suddenly flashed. An object had appeared out of nowhere. No warp signature, no hyperspace distortion, just like before. It wasn't the massive warship they had expected, but a smaller vessel, sleek and silent, hovering just beyond the station's defense line. The Imperial captain's heart raced. It worked, he whispered. He ordered all systems to stay quiet. The human vessel approached slowly, scanning the area. Its surface glowed softly with faint blue lines that looked alive. Then, without warning, the trap was sprung. Dozens of energy nets launched from hidden satellites, forming a magnetic cage around the human ship. At the same time, the Imperial station fired an electromagnetic pulse meant to disable its systems. Sparks flickered across the human vessel's hull as the nets tightened. Containment field stable, shouted one of the officers. We have it! But their celebration didn't last. Within seconds, the entire station began to shake. The lights dimmed. Alarms screamed. The magnetic field holding the human ship started to bend and twist as if it were being pushed from the inside. A low hum filled the room, deep and powerful, vibrating through the metal walls. The captain's eyes widened. What's happening? The sensors overloaded, showing impossible readings, energy levels rising higher and higher. Then the blue lights on the human ship flared brighter, almost blindingly, and then silence. When the light faded, the human vessel was gone. The nets were torn apart, melted like paper. The entire Imperial station floated lifeless, its systems fried. Every screen went black except one. A message appeared, written in clean, glowing letters. Do not repeat this mistake. Then the message vanished, and the power returned. The station's crew was still alive, but their communications array had been completely erased. The Empire could no longer reach them. When a rescue ship finally arrived 2 days later, they found the crew shaken and terrified. They spoke little, only saying one thing. It was watching us the whole time. It knew. The report reached the Emperor within hours. He read it in silence, his face unreadable. The others in the room waited for his reaction, but he said nothing for a long time. Finally, he whispered, They didn't destroy us. Again. That simple fact troubled him more than anything. The humans had every chance to wipe out the station, and yet they didn't. They just disabled it and left a warning. Why, that night the Emperor couldn't sleep. He walked alone through the palace corridors, his mind full of questions. What were these humans protecting? What was so important that they guarded an entire region of space? And why had they spared his people more than once? Far from the Empire, deep in the silent darkness, the human warship floated beside the smaller vessel that had been captured and released. Inside, the human commander watched the replay of the event. They tried to trap us, said one of his officers. I know, the commander replied quietly. They're desperate. They're trying to understand what they can't control. The officer looked uneasy. Should we respond? The commander shook his head. Not yet. Every empire eventually learns. Ours learned the hard way long ago. Let them think. Let them wonder. For a moment, the commander stared at the holographic image of the galaxy, thousands of stars scattered like dust. He zoomed in on the Empire's capital system, watching its ships move like ants around their worlds. They think they rule everything, he said softly, but they've never looked beyond the light. A calm silence filled the control room. The humans had seen the Empire's rise from afar. They had watched it conquer and destroy countless civilizations. But now, for the first time, the Empire had finally found something it couldn't dominate. Back in the capital, unrest grew quietly among the people. Whispers of rebellion began to spread. If the humans can stand against the Empire, some said, then maybe we can too. The Emperor's advisors warned him of growing dissent, but his mind was elsewhere. He had become obsessed with understanding the humans, who they were, where they came from, and why they cared so much about that forbidden sector. He ordered a massive expedition, this time not for war but for knowledge. He wanted to uncover the truth no matter the cost. Secretly, he hoped that understanding the humans might bring him power again, or at least peace. But he had no idea that what he was about to discover would change everything. As the Imperial expedition prepared to depart, something strange happened. Across the galaxy, thousands of old satellites and forgotten beacons suddenly came to life. They all transmitted the same short message, repeated over and over in every known language. Do not cross the boundary. You have been warned. The message came from nowhere, yet it reached everywhere. The humans had spoken again, but this time their warning was not just for the Empire. It was for the entire galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness, unseen and silent, the great human fleet began to awaken. Ships that had slept for centuries powered up one by one. Their engines glowed faintly as they turned toward the stars. The Empire thought it was watching them. But in truth, it was the other way around. And soon the galaxy would learn what humanity had become. The galaxy had gone silent. For the first time in centuries, no new wars were declared. No new planets were invaded. Every empire, every ruler, every wandering fleet had heard the same mysterious message. Do not cross the boundary. You have been warned. The warning echoed through every communication channel, even those thought long dead. No one could trace its origin. Some believed it was a signal from the gods. Others whispered it was the voice of an ancient race guarding something powerful. But the Emperor knew the truth. It was the humans. He sat alone in his private chamber, the dim blue glow of holograms reflecting in his tired eyes. Before him floated a map of the galaxy, and at the very center of it, a dark region with no light, no data, no life. That was the Forbidden Sector. The one where the human warship first appeared. Every time he looked at it, he felt the same chill run down his spine. Who are they really? He whispered to himself. And why protect this place with such silence? He had spent months sending probes and long-range scanners hoping to peek inside the dark sector. Every attempt had failed. The machines either vanished or returned completely blank, as if the data itself had been erased from existence. It was a mystery the Emperor could not let go of. Power, pride, fear, whatever it was, something inside him refused to rest until he understood. In the Imperial Research Division, scientists worked endlessly, analyzing fragments of energy left behind by the human ships. Most of them found nothing, but one young scientist, nervous, curious, and driven, made a strange discovery. He found that the energy signature used by the human ships wasn't made from any known fuel or reactor system. It was alive, not in the biological sense, but in the way it moved and reacted. It pulsed like a heartbeat. When he presented the data to the council, everyone thought it was an error. But when he showed it to the Emperor, the ruler leaned forward, interested for the first time in weeks. Alive, you say? The Emperor asked. Yes, Your Majesty, the scientist replied, trembling slightly. It reacts to thought patterns. It changes when observed, almost as if it feels. The Emperor smiled faintly. Then the humans are not using machines, he said slowly. They've merged with them. It was a frightening idea. But it also explained why their ships moved without any visible propulsion, why their shields acted like living walls, and why no scanning device could read through them. The humans weren't just pilots, they were part of their ships. That night, the Emperor called for his most trusted admiral. We are not dealing with soldiers, he said in a low voice. We are dealing with something else. Something that thinks differently than us. But if it can be understood, it can be controlled. The Admiral hesitated. Your Majesty, with respect, we've already provoked them once. If we cross the boundary again, the Emperor raised his hand to silence him. Fear is a tool for the weak. The Empire does not fear the unknown. We conquer it. And with that, preparations began for a new mission, the largest yet. The Empire would not attack this time. They would explore. Thousands of ships were sent to the very edge of the forbidden region, forming a massive perimeter. But deep inside, unseen, the human fleet was already awake. Inside the lead ship, the human commander watched from afar. His calm eyes reflected the faint light of distant stars. Around him, dozens of silent crew members worked like shadows, their movements smooth and synchronized, as if guided by instinct rather than command. They've come again, said one of them softly. The Empire. Thousands of ships. The commander nodded. They were warned. They think we're protecting something, another voice said quietly. A faint smile appeared on the commander's face. We are. For a long moment, silence filled the control room. The hum of the engines was soft, almost soothing, like a heartbeat in the dark. Far from the human ship, the Empire's massive expedition began to send out probes, drones, and signal beacons. The first few disappeared instantly, just as before. But then something unexpected happened. One of the probes transmitted back a signal. It wasn't an image, not a video feed, but a single sound. A voice. It spoke in perfect Imperial standard, calm and clear. You are trespassing. Leave now. The scientist froze. The Emperor, who was listening from the command station, clenched his fists. Open a channel, he ordered. The communications officer hesitated. But Your Majesty, undo it. A moment later, the Emperor's voice echoed across space. This is the ruler of the Galactic Empire. Identify yourself. For several seconds, there was no response. The silence was unbearable. Then the voice returned. You know who we are. We warned you before. The Emperor's tone hardened. We seek only knowledge, not war. Another pause. Then the voice said quietly, knowledge is earned through peace, not greed. The transmission ended. For the first time in his life, the Emperor had no words. The calmness of that voice shook him more than any weapon could. It was as if it spoke directly to his soul. Still, he refused to stop. Prepare a scout team, he said finally. I want eyes inside that sector. A group of volunteers, scientists, soldiers, and explorers were chosen. They were brave, or perhaps too curious for their own good. They entered the forbidden zone in a small ship, carrying enough supplies for only a week. The Empire waited in tense silence. When the ship crossed the boundary, all external communication was lost. Hours turned into days. No signal, no return. Everyone assumed the worst. Then, on the seventh day, the ship reappeared. It looked unharmed, but something was different. The hull was glowing faintly with blue light, the same strange pattern seen on human ships. The Empire quickly brought it aboard for inspection. When the doors opened, the crew stepped out. Their eyes were calm, their movements slow, and their faces expressionless. The doctor who examined them later said something chilling. Their heartbeats are slower. Their minds are different. They don't seem afraid of anything anymore. When asked what happened inside the dark sector, one of the explorers spoke softly. We saw the humans. Not just one ship, thousands. But they weren't attacking us. They showed us a place. What kind of place? The Emperor asked. The explorer took a deep breath. A planet, beautiful, quiet, but it wasn't like ours. Everything there seemed alive. The air itself felt alive. And the humans told us it was once part of the old galaxy. A world destroyed by war. They rebuilt it. They called it home. The Emperor stared at them in disbelief. You mean, they came from our galaxy? The explorer nodded. Long before any of our empires existed. They left when the old civilizations collapsed. They've been watching ever since. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at the Emperor, waiting for his reaction. He said nothing for a long time. Then quietly he ordered, leave the sector alone. But it was already too late. Word about the explorer's return spread across the galaxy. People began to question everything. The Empire's history, their origins, their right to rule. If humans were here before, they asked, then what does that make us? Riots broke out on several colonies. Small groups began to worship the humans as ancient protectors. Others called them ghosts of the past. The balance of power that had held for centuries was breaking apart. The Emperor watched helplessly as his empire began to unravel from within. He had wanted to understand the humans, to control them, but instead he had awakened something far greater. Far away, the human commander watched the chaos unfold through distant sensors. He sighed softly. "They still haven't learned," one of his officers said. "They will," the commander replied. "Every civilization reaches this point. Some destroy themselves. Some rise above it. We will see which path they choose." He turned to the stars again, his voice almost a whisper. "We don't need to destroy them. We just need them to remember what they once were." Back in the capital, the Emperor stood once more before the giant observation window, staring into the endless dark. He thought about everything that had happened: the warnings, the ship, the explorers, the fear. He finally understood what the humans had been trying to say all along. Power without understanding leads to destruction. Knowledge without compassion leads to emptiness. He whispered quietly to the stars. Maybe we were the ones who forgot. Outside, the galaxies shone like distant memories. And somewhere beyond the boundary, the human fleet watched in silence, guardians of a truth too old and too deep for most to remember. But soon, that truth would come out. And when it did, the entire galaxy would have to face what humanity had been protecting all along. The galaxy was no longer the same. The Emperor's once unshakable rule had started to fade like smoke in the wind. Planets that once bowed to the Empire now questioned its purpose. People had begun to whisper of a forgotten truth, a truth that the humans had tried to protect. Everywhere, rumors spread like fire. Some said the humans were ancient gods. Others believed they were survivors of a time before time itself. But no one knew for sure. All they knew was that the Empire had crossed a line it was never meant to cross, and now nothing felt safe anymore. The Emperor could feel it too. He no longer sat upon his golden throne with pride. He spent his days in silence, sitting in the observation hall watching the stars. His once strong face looked older now, tired and heavy. His mind kept returning to the same question. Why did they warn us instead of destroying us? There was something about the humans that didn't match the stories of conquerors or enemies. They could have crushed the Empire 100 times, yet they never did. They just watched and waited. One evening, a messenger entered his chamber quietly. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "a signal has been detected. It's from beyond the boundary." The Emperor slowly turned his head. "Another warning?" The messenger shook his head. "No, it's different this time. It's an invitation." The Emperor frowned. "Show me." Moments later, a holographic message filled the room. It was simple, just coordinates and a few words: "Come and see." The Emperor stared at those words for a long time. They weren't a threat. They weren't even a command. They were an invitation, calm and mysterious. After a lifetime of chasing power and control, something deep inside him whispered that this was his last chance to truly understand. He ordered a small ship to be prepared, no weapons, no escorts. Against the advice of every officer, he went alone. The journey was long and silent. The stars outside the window blurred into streaks of light. As his ship approached the boundary, the sensors began to flicker. Static filled the air. The Emperor gripped the control panel tightly, his heart pounding. Then, just like before, the darkness appeared, an endless void of nothingness. It was as if the universe itself had forgotten this place existed. Suddenly, the ship slowed. The stars vanished. In their place, a faint light began to glow ahead. He held his breath as the light grew brighter, forming shapes, colors, and landscapes. He had crossed the boundary, and what he saw left him speechless. Before him stretched a planet unlike any he had ever seen. It glowed softly with hues of blue and silver. Giant oceans reflected the light of 2 suns, and towering crystal-like mountains rose high into the clouds. Everything looked alive but peaceful. It wasn't a world built by machines, it was a world healed by time. The ship landed gently on a smooth plain. When the Emperor stepped outside, the air felt strangely warm, gentle and pure. It didn't feel like any other world in the Empire. It felt like, as he took a few steps forward, he saw them, humans. They were standing in the distance, watching him silently. They didn't wear armor or carry weapons. They looked calm, their expressions kind but unreadable. One of them stepped forward, his voice deep and steady. "You came." The Emperor swallowed hard. "You asked me to." The human nodded. "You wanted answers. Now you will have them." The Emperor looked around at the shining landscape. "This place, what is it?" The human looked toward the horizon, his eyes distant. This was the first home. Before the wars. Before the empires. Before we forgot what it meant to live. The Emperor frowned slightly. "You mean, this was where humans began?" The man nodded. "Yes, but not just humans. You too." The Emperor froze. "What do you mean?" The human took a slow breath. "You are our children, not by blood but by time. When humanity left this world, it wasn't because of war or pride. It was because the stars were dying. We traveled far searching for a future, but somewhere along the way we changed. Some of us evolved into new forms, new species, and when our memory of the past faded, the stories of who we were became myths." The Emperor's voice trembled. "So you're saying we are descended from you?" "Yes," the human said quietly. "Every being in your empire carries a spark of what once was human. But as centuries passed, the truth was buried under power, greed, and fear. We stayed hidden, watching from the shadows, waiting for the right time to remind you." The Emperor felt his knees weaken. He looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "Then why didn't you stop us sooner? Why let us destroy and rule?" The human looked at him with calm sadness. "Because you needed to learn. We made the same mistakes once. We destroyed worlds, chased power, and thought we ruled the stars. It nearly ended us. Only when we lost everything did we finally understand." The Emperor lowered his head, his voice barely a whisper. "And now?" "Now," said the human softly, "it is your choice. You can continue to rule through fear or rebuild through understanding. The galaxy doesn't need another conqueror. It needs a guide." For a long moment, the Emperor said nothing. The wind brushed softly against his face. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel powerful. He felt small, humbled, and strangely free. He looked around at the planet again, the mountains, the air, the gentle hum of life, and realized this was what power was supposed to protect, not destroy. Finally, he spoke. "I understand," the human nodded. "Then your journey begins now. Go back, lead differently. The galaxy still remembers your voice. Let it hear something new." The Emperor hesitated. "And what about you? Will you ever return?" The human smiled faintly. "We never left. We are everywhere, watching, guiding, waiting for you to remember who you are." The Emperor took one last look at the shining landscape before returning to his ship. As it rose into the sky, he saw thousands of human ships hidden within the clouds, their surfaces glowing faintly like stars. They weren't preparing for war, they were protecting the galaxy silently, patiently. When the Emperor returned to his capital, he was no longer the same man. His eyes carried a calmness no one had seen before. His first command shocked everyone. He ordered the demilitarization of half the imperial fleets. Instead of new conquests, he announced new missions: rebuilding destroyed worlds, helping weaker species recover, sharing knowledge instead of hoarding it. Many resisted at first, thinking he had gone mad, but slowly something began to change. The endless wars stopped. Trade and peace began to grow. The people saw new hope in his voice. He never spoke publicly of what he saw beyond the boundary. When his advisors asked about it, he only said, "We were looking for power in the wrong place. The real power was never in weapons or fleets, it was in remembering who we are." Years passed. The Emperor grew older, but his rule became peaceful. The empire transformed into something different, less an empire, more a community of worlds united by understanding. Sometimes, late at night, he would stand at his window and look up at the stars. And every now and then he would see a faint blue light streak across the sky. It would last only a second, but it was enough to make him smile. He knew the humans were still there, watching silently, guarding the galaxy's balance, and perhaps one day, when every world had learned what they had forgotten, the humans would return not as guardians, but as family. The Emperor closed his eyes one final time many years later, his last words soft and peaceful. "Now, I understand what they meant by home." Far beyond, in the quiet of the stars, the human commander stood aboard his ship, gazing at the galaxy now at peace. "He remembered," said one of his officers quietly. The commander nodded. "Yes, and because of that, so will others. The stars outside shimmered gently like memories awakening. The warships of humanity turned slowly toward the light, their purpose complete. The galaxy no longer needed saving. It only needed to remember. And in that silent, endless night, the humans disappeared once more into the dark, guardians of a peace they had waited 1,000 years to see reborn.